I had no idea where the black coffin blocking the classroom aisle had come from. In fact, no one in the entire school knew its origin, but we had a name for this phenomenon: the mourning. Every student enrolling here was briefed about it. There was even a mandatory test to ensure we understood how to cope if our class was chosen. No one knew which class would be next or how often the cycle repeated. All we knew was that if, one day, we saw our class name marked in red and a black coffin appeared in the middle of the room, we had officially been selected as the mourners. No one actually died. The coffin was always empty, and once it disappeared, no trace of it remained. But during that period, we had strict rules to follow. One of them was that we had to wear white mourning scarves and refrain from calling each other by our full names. Students with 3-part names could only be addressed by 2, those with 2-part names, by 1. Revealing someone's full name was as ominous as signing their death warrant. Roll calls in a mourning class were never conducted. It would be equivalent to condemning every student there, even if they had done nothing wrong. Wednesday. I suddenly noticed Ms. Carter's gaze shifting toward me. No, not me exactly. She was staring at the person sitting next to me. I glanced sideways at Ethan, who was still engrossed in his phone, barely paying attention to the lesson. Ethan had a detailed record of every morning in the school. It was a massive Google sheet with over 10 pages, each representing a class and documenting every instance they had been marked. His screen was too dim for me to read the details, but I could make out the bold number 3 next to 12A5, indicating how many times that class had been affected. "She's looking at you again," I whispered, keeping my voice low. "Every time I look up, she's staring at our table. That's at least 4 times already." Ethan exhaled sharply, locking his phone and setting it down. Ms. Carter's eyes flicked toward us again before she instructed the class to turn to the next page and began her lecture on Mendelian genetics. The sound of pages flipping echoed through the room. "Move your hand a bit, okay, thanks." Ethan nudged my arm aside to check the textbook page number before flipping to the correct one. Like every other student in the class, he had removed his school badge and tied a white mourning scarf around his head, a symbol of belonging to the chosen mourners. I never understood why Ethan bothered taking off his badge. As a member of the mourning management committee, his badge was exempt from displaying his full name. He always concealed his surname, so on his uniform, his name was simply T.H. Dang Ethan. "For a class in mourning, everyone's still surprisingly diligent," Ethan muttered. "Maybe that's why she's annoyed that I'm on my phone. Other classes just slack off when it happens. Means class didn't even care." Yeah, makes sense. I noticed the green armband on Ethan's left wrist, standing out against his uniform as he highlighted text in his book with a neon marker. Our last 2 morning periods passed without a hitch. Hopefully, this one will be the same. By the way, Vi's still absent today. Huh? Hannah, I clarified, glancing at the empty seat in Group 1. She's been absent for almost a week now. I thought she was visiting her grandparents. Didn't yet submit a leave request to the discipline office? Yeah, but... I lowered my voice. She usually posts a lot on social media, but lately, she's been oddly quiet. I don't know, it just feels off. You're overthinking. Ethan grabbed his phone, turned the volume down, and shoved it into his desk drawer. A loud thud echoed as it hit the wood. "Sorry," Ethan muttered. "I forgot to mute it." "Using your phone in class is bad enough, but making noise too?" Ms. Carter frowned. "One more time and I'll write you up. You're the deputy head of the morning committee. You should be setting an example, not disrupting class." "I'm sorry, ma'am." Pfft. Jason suddenly stifled a laugh but quickly cleared his throat and sat up straight, pretending he hadn't done anything. Emma, sitting beside him, covered her mouth, grinning. The 2 of them huddled together, whispering, but I couldn't make out their words. Still, I had a feeling it wasn't anything good. Truthfully, Ethan had permission to use his phone during class, especially when mourning was in effect. As deputy head of the mourning committee, he was responsible for overseeing everything related to it. She's in a foul mood today, huh? Told you. Ethan clicked his tongue, rummaged through his desk drawer, and retrieved his phone. A notification lit up the screen. Just as I suspected, the call had come from the HTT High School Morning Committee. Why didn't you just ask to step out and take the call? I asked, keeping my voice low. Roll call isn't happening today anyway. It would have been easier if you just asked. I don't want to leave the room. Why? Well. Ethan trailed off, his gaze flickering toward the empty desk by the wall, then shifting to the black coffin in the aisle. Ms. Carter continued her lecture, her movements fluid as she wrote on the board. Her eye swayed as she moved, brushing against something that shouldn't have been there. Without another word, Ethan grabbed his phone and walked toward the teacher's desk. Ms. Carter's initial irritation faded, replaced by suspicion as she watched him approach. He leaned in, showing her something on his screen. Whatever it was, it wiped the color from her face. Her eyes darted toward the coffin, and she kept asking for confirmation. Ethan, however, remained composed. Besides a small nod, he said nothing. Then, suddenly, Ms. Carter stood up and announced that class was dismissed, despite it being an hour before lunch break.